Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Savvy Painter podcast. I am your host, Krys. And if you have been listening for a while, welcome back. And if you are new here, I am so glad that you found me. Savvy Painter is the podcast for artists who want practical, tactical tips to create a meaningful art practice that is both fulfilling and supports you. So there's an artist I know who showed up to what she thought was a photo shoot. She got dressed for photos. She drove there for photos. She was completely ready for photos. And then she walked into something considerably bigger. On-camera interviews, full production, a whole thing that was nothing like what she had prepared for. She told me afterwards, I'm really glad I didn't know it was going to be like that. And then she added the thing that I just keep thinking about the rest of that sentence, which was because I would have said no. She would have said no. If she had known what she was actually walking into, the real size of it, the real ask that they were making of her, she would have opted out. But she didn't know. So she walked in and she handled it. And at the end of the day, she was sitting in her favorite setting, painting in the middle of this beautiful production. And she had this moment where she just thought, how did I get here? What is actually my life right now? That question is where I want to start today. So, friends, over the last few episodes, I have been sharing a lot of the frameworks that I developed and used inside of Growth Studio. The seasons, the zones, the create spiral, the GPS metaphor, all of it. And the thread that runs through all of it that I wanted to end with is something that I believe to my core. And that is that you are so much more powerful than you realize. I know that can sound like something that you'd see on an Instagram post or on a coffee mug. And I want you to stay with me because I'm not saying it just to make you feel good. I'm saying it because I have watched it proven true over and over and over again with real artists who told themselves that they couldn't, that they shouldn't, and then they did it anyway. Not occasionally, not just once or twice, but consistently. The capability was there. Their capacity was already there. What was missing was the trust that it was there. And today, I want to talk about the evidence for that, because I think you need to actually see it to believe it sometimes. So by the end of this episode, you're going to have something concrete to hold on to the next time a part of you wants to say no, maybe a different way to think about what you're actually capable of and where that capability has been all along. So the person I was talking about, her name is Leslie. Hey, girl. Know you're listening. Leslie showed up to what she thought was a photo shoot, and she walked into something that was so much bigger, and she handled it. Now, here's what I want you to just think about for a little while. It wasn't luck. It wasn't that she stumbled into some capability that she'd never had before. Earlier that summer, she'd done this interview, and at the time, she told me it was really frustrating. She didn't feel like it went well, and she walked away feeling like she'd missed the mark somehow. That moment where she was thinking, I don't think that I did that well, to her in that moment, it felt like a setback. But that frustrating interview, that was what I'm thinking of as the first chamber. I love this image, and I want to share it with you. Think of a nautilus shell that spirals outward, and every chamber grows from the one before. Can't help it. I'm a Montessori kid, so I've got to bring a nautilus in somehow. And from inside any single chamber, you can't see the shape of the whole shell. You just know the chamber that you're currently in. So I like to think about that as the create spiral working. That's the zones, that's the seasons, that's all of the things that I teach you. You're always inside of a chamber. And the one that feels frustrating right now, the one where you walked away thinking, I don't think I did it that well. The painting you didn't think you could finish, the show that didn't turn out the way that you hoped it would, it's not wasted. It's the next chamber forming around it. The capability that you need is being built all the time, even when you can't feel it happening, especially when you can't feel it happening. And here's the thing that I want you to remember, because I don't want you to skip past this. So pay attention right here. Leslie didn't know she could handle it until she handled it. She didn't feel ready. She wasn't performing confident. She wasn't faking it until she made it. She just walked in because she didn't have enough information to talk herself out of it. How many times have you talked yourself out of something because you had too much information, too much time to think, too clear of a picture of how big the thing actually was, or how big your brain makes that thing? Your capacity was never the problem. The doubt was the problem. And the doubt almost won. So let me tell you about another artist. Her name is Rachel. Rachel had been stuck on a painting for months, going back to it, putting it down, going back to it again. It felt like to her like nothing was working. And then someone asked her for tips on watercolor blending, and she started talking through her approach. She explained her process. She was thinking out loud about technique, and then something just clicked. And she told me her brain just exploded. She felt like she couldn't stop. The painting she'd been stuck on for months started to ease open. Not because she found something new, not because she learned a new technique. She stopped trying to force her way in through a door that wasn't opening, and she found a completely different door. She knew how to blend. She had always known. The technical knowledge was there the whole time. The block wasn't on the canvas. It was in whatever story was running underneath. The one that said something like, I've been at this too long. Something must be wrong. I don't know how to finish this. Why can't I get it? What if it doesn't work out? That's what the actual obstacle was. The solution came when she stopped attacking the painting and started talking about her process. See how that works? Sharing her expertise with someone else unlocked the thing that she had been trying to force and couldn't reach on her own. That's what I mean when I say your canvas is a direct reflection of what's happening in your mind. That's what it actually looks like in practice. Doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that the real work is always accessible. It means that when a canvas feels stuck, there's almost always another way in, very close, right in front of you. And sometimes the door is telling someone else what you already know. That door that you need that door that you're trying to unlock, the door that you're hoping will open, sometimes it's just saying your process out loud. So I really want you to get that the knowledge was hers the entire time. She just needed a different way in to see it. What I just described, the kind of stuck that Rachel was in and the way that it opened up for her, that doesn't usually happen in isolation. The podcast can give you the story and the language for it. What it can't do is put you in a room with other artists who are in the middle of the exact same thing so that you can hear yourself saying, hey, here's what's working in my process, and watch someone else's face light up with recognition. That's what happens inside Growth Studio. Real calls, real artists, real moments where the thing that you thought was just your problem turns out to be everyone else's problem too. Another way of saying that, you're not alone. And the thing that you know is the exact story that somebody else needs to hear. That's what it looks like when community does what a community does. If you've been curious about Growth Studio, the link is in the show notes. I want to tell you one more story because this is a good one, because I think it really illustrates these points. And I love this one because it just shows how the little small moments, which feel mundane on the surface, are actually the moments that lead up to the big, big shifts. So Krys had signed up for a workshop with a teacher that she'd been following for, I think it was like 2 years. So there was 2 years of watching this person's work, admiring it, wanting to learn from them. And then she told me, I decided it's time. I can afford it. It's time I did things for myself instead of for other people. On the surface, it sounds really simple, right? She signed up for a workshop. No big deal. Except it is a big deal because look at what was actually happening. For 2 years, Krys had the means. She could afford it. The workshop was there, it existed. The desire was there. The instructor that she wanted to learn from was offering a way to learn from them. What she hadn't yet given herself was permission. And permission isn't something that anyone else can give you. Not a teacher, not a gallery, not me. It comes from having your own back. It comes from trusting yourself with your own needs, from saying and meaning it, I'm allowed to invest in myself. I'm allowed to want this. I'm allowed to say that this matters to me. That's having your own back in one of its most everyday forms. It's not dramatic. It's not like a big lightning bolt comes down. These are the small daily moments. It's the most mundane version of having your back, but I think it's one of the most powerful ways that we do it. In fact, I'd say it's the most powerful way that we have our own back. This is the version that shows up in a moment of, I could afford this, and I'm going to let myself have it. That's the part that often goes unnoticed because it doesn't look like a big deal. So when Krys gave that to herself, the workshop was already there waiting, and it had been for 2 years. So again, the power was always with Krys. She just needed to step up and say, I'm taking this. So I want to take a moment here and say what these past few episodes that I've been working on, that I've been sharing with you, have been building towards. We started with the map, the idea that there is no rule book. There's just where you currently are and where you want to go, and that you can't navigate any of that until you know your current location. We also talked about the 4 seasons, the making art, the sharing art, the selling art, and rest, and how once you know which one of those seasons you're in, that mundane pressure about not being in all of the other seasons starts to let go of you. So you can just be where you are and be present in the season that you currently are working in. It allows you to let go of the idea that you're behind. You are just in this particular season, and you can focus on that so that you can take full advantage of it. So we also talked about noticing. That was another small but mighty tool that we use constantly. Noticing is about the moment when you catch yourself in a pattern, whether that pattern is self-criticism, comparison, or I should be further along. That moment that you catch yourself, that little pause right there, is not evidence that you're doing it wrong. A lot of people think that when they have that moment, they're like, oh my gosh, I just realized I was being self-critical, or I just realized that I was caught in comparing myself to all these other artists, or the artist that I think I should be, or anything like that. That moment where you notice it, that's your brain doing something different. And that pause is important. It's incredibly important. The reason it's so important is because it gives you the opportunity to make a different choice. The noticing in and of itself is a shift because you've paused rather than just reacting. And I cannot emphasize enough how huge that is, because that's the opportunity, that's the door that we keep opening a little bit wider, a little bit wider, a little bit wider every time we have it. So we also talked about how what's on your canvas is a direct reflection of what's happening in your mind, how what's showing up in your work is so often telling you something about what's happening in your mind. And it's not criticism to notice that. It's the most empowering thing I know because it means that the real work is always within your reach. And I also shared with you the 3 zones: the comfort zone, growth zone, and the ring of terror. Knowing where you are, recognizing those zones, again, so helpful because you start to realize how your body is constantly sending you signals and you can respond to it, which increases your self-trust. It increases that concept that I can have my own back. That's how we do it. And then today, we've talked about your power, gave you some examples of some real artists, real evidence that this is how it works. So just notice how every person I shared a story about for the last few episodes, Elaine, Dinah, Sheila, Gabriella, Megan, Janet, Andrew, Mary, Leslie, Rachel, Krys, every single one of them was an artist who got curious about where they were on that map and how they could move forward. Every single one of those artists is doing the work. They're pausing long enough to notice what's happening, give themselves a little bit more grace today than they had yesterday. None of them were special cases. They are all very special people, but none of them are unicorns. None of them had some unusual capacity for self-awareness that you don't have. They just started paying attention and then they trusted what they noticed. That's it. That's the whole thing. And that is available to you right now in whatever season you're in whatever zone you currently are feeling yourself in whatever chamber of that nautilus shell you are in. There's no rule book, but there is a map and you are already on it, going in the right direction. So Growth Studio is where I do this work with artists every single week. Real calls, real conversations, real wins that, if I'm being honest, I get a little overexcited about. I kind of freak out about them. It's true. I will definitely own that. And I'm not apologizing for that. I am totally embracing that because it's all completely worth it. So if anything in these past couple of episodes resonated with you, if you heard yourself in any of these stories, I want you to become a part of what I'm building here, what we're building in Growth Studio. The link is in the show notes, and I hope I see you in there. Either way, I want to give you one thing to try this week, something tangible that you can put into practice right now whenever you're in your studio. When something isn't working, maybe it's a painting that you are having a hard time finishing, or you're in the messy middle of it, or there's a moment of this is not at all going the way I thought it would. Maybe you are in a place where you're sharing your work with other people, sharing it online, or you are starting to show your work. Before you push harder, I want you to ask yourself, what's the door that I've been trying to open? And then, is there another door, a different door that I could try? That's it. That's the whole practice. Just one question, one gentle redirect, because you have more access to what you need than you think. Thank you so much for listening. I truly mean that. Thank you for being here, for spending time here, for taking any of this into your studio and seeing what happens with it. This is not a small thing, and I do not take it lightly. So that's what I have for you this week. Go make something, go create something, and I will talk to you next week.